Today you're seeing a gathering of many organizations throughout the Chicago area coming together to protest the 11th anniversary of Guantanamo Bay Detention Center that was established by the Bush regime in 2002. At that time, it was thought by the Bush regime that Guantanamo could serve as a kind of legal no man's land where they could detain people without due process, without charging them or giving them a trial. Over 782 people were held at Guantanamo. Today, right now, there's 166 men who remain. 86 of them have been cleared for release, yet the Obama administration refuses to release them. And that's why we're out here today. We're out here to protest the policy, the U.S. policy of torture and indefinite detention, and demand an end to those practices.
Hello and welcome. I'm Jill McLaughlin of the World Can't Wait National Steering Committee and the Chicago chapter of World Can't Wait. We are here today because sadly we are marking the 11th anniversary of the opening of Guantanamo Bay Detention Center, where 166 men remain detained. Guantanamo was established in January of 2002 as part of the Bush regime's so-called war on terror, which has caused the lives of millions through illegitimate and immoral wars and occupation by the U.S., with thousands being tortured and indefinitely detained without charge or trial. Guantanamo was created because it was thought it could serve as a legal no man's land where our government could deny the right of due process to prisoners. More than 782 men were brought there from around the world, a majority of them seized in Afghanistan and Pakistan as a result of U.S. bounties of up to $25,000. Most were humanitarian aid workers, charity workers, and those who had sought to make a living to support their families far from home. In fact, Colonel Wilkerson, who was Chief of Staff to Secretary of State Colin Powell from 2002 until 2005, stated that George W. Bush, Dick Cheney, and Donald Rumsfeld knew and didn't care that a vast majority of these detainees at Guantanamo were innocent. And Obama, who promised to close Guantanamo during his 2008 presidential campaign, has not done so. He has repeatedly refused to prosecute Bush-era officials for their crimes and has over and over again fought to have lawsuits by those tortured and detained thrown out. As I said earlier, today 166 men remain at Guantanamo. 86 of those have been cleared for release, yet our government will not let them go. And Obama, just last week, signed once again the National Defense Authorization Act, which states that the U.S. military can detain indefinitely anyone, U.S. citizen or non-U.S. citizen. This makes the likelihood that the men at Guantanamo will be released anytime soon. Lastly, President Obama not only did not close Guantanamo, but in many ways, what we are protesting today has become more widespread and more institutionalized during his presidency. Our speakers today will describe many ways in which this is being done. I'm going to introduce to you our first speaker, Blaine Miniman of Amnesty International. Woo! Woo!
Hello, Chicago.
Hello.
Let's make some noise. We're here to protest a travesty of justice. Chicago, it's time to close Guantanamo now. Say it with me. What do we want to do? Close Guantanamo. When do we want to do it?
Now.
What do we want to do?
Close Guantanamo.
When do we want to do it?
Now.
My Elaine Miniman, and I'm a volunteer leader for Amnesty International USA. If you don't know, Amnesty International has over 3 million members and volunteers around the world. We support the human rights of all people everywhere. By defending people that otherwise had no voice, Amnesty International was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1977. Chicago, I believe in a great America, the one that demanded freedom in 1776 and has stood fast in its defense for over 2 centuries since then. Chicago, today my heart is sad, for today we gather to note the 11th year of a monumental travesty of justice, the unlawful and immoral indefinite detention of people without charges or trial. I believe in our Constitution and in a code of civilized conduct. I believe that all people have the right to a fair trial, the right to be free from arbitrary detention, and the right to be free from torture. The Guantanamo detainees have these rights as well. Chicago, these are people. They are fathers. They are sons. Chicago, do you still believe in justice?
Yes!
Yes, there must be justice for the September 11th attacks. But justice comes through a fair trial and not from indefinite detention. There are 166 people still at Guantanamo, and 86 of them have reportedly been cleared for transfer out of prison. One of those detainees is Shakir Ahmad. He was publicly named in September as cleared for transfer, and he has been held over 10 years without charge. He has British residency, and the British government has repeatedly called for him to be free with his wife and children in London. President Obama, why is Shakir Ahmad still in prison? All detainees must either be charged and fairly tried in federal court or to be released to countries that will respect their human rights. We must demand proof for crimes. Chicago, it is up to us to make America the land of the free once more. It's time to close Guantanamo now. Say it with me once more. What do we want to do?
Close Guantanamo!
When do we want to do it?
Now!
One more time, Chicago, what do we want to do?
Close Guantanamo!
When do we want to do it?
Now!
I wish you all peace.
Thanks, Blaine. Next, I'm going to invite Betty Bell, who went to Afghanistan in November of this year. When Betty is in Afghanistan, he stays with the Afghan Peace Volunteers, a pro-peace collective of Afghan youth in Kabul, who sponsor neighborhood programs such as after-school tutoring, an English class, a filmmaking group, and a women's self-empowerment employment cooperative. At home, he tries to relay to the U.S. public the perspectives and opinions of Afghans about the gruesome war on their country. He speaks today about the U.S. veto over releasing detainees from Bagram prison.
Thank you. This week, Obama and Afghan President Karzai are meeting in Washington. So presumably, Obama wants to continue the policy of immunity for U.S. troops in Afghanistan. In other words, the Afghan government should have no say over what the punishment will be for criminality of U.S. troops, NATO troops. At the same time, the U.S. is still running, for the most part, the Bagram prison, in which they maintain a veto over releasing detainees at Bagram, many of whom do not have any charges against them or any evidence. We need to shut down Guantanamo, we need to shut down Bagram. Even though that recently they've released some people from Bagram, is maybe 100, there's over 3,000 people detained at Bagram. and over 200 of them are minors, as young as 14 years old. They're kept in the same cells as adults. Many of them were picked up and arrested in their schools. If anyone has any quaint ideas of justice and fairness, it's also against international law to do this. But this is just one more export that the U.S. has made from the U.S. system into the Afghan system. We know that in county jails around the country, a lot of the conditions are similar to that. Right now in Kabul, in the winter, people are trying to burn whatever they can for heating their homes. Plastic, garbage, all that is going into the air. The infrastructure is crumbling. And after more than 11 years of war in Afghanistan, the U.S. has failed to export any sort of economic development program to the country. So we say we need to stop exporting unjust prisons and war to Afghanistan, and we need to start caring about the people there. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Jay Becker of Chicago World Can't Wait. Jay has been an activist and organizer with World Can't Wait since its beginning. Another message that we're conveying today is that the film Zero Dark 30 is a justification and a glorification for everything that we want to stop. Torture, indefinite detention, revenge. Despite the claims that that film opens with, that it depicts, quote, real events based on talking to participants, Zero Dark 30 is neither factual nor neutral. It portrays the CIA's view of the world, and it's extremely dangerous. Zero Dark 30 depicts torture as a, quote, necessary tool to save American lives. Torture is in fact used to violently degrade and dehumanize other human beings and to terrorize whole populations. The only, quote, information gathered from torture from its victims is whatever the torturers want them to say. And CIA torturers are not heroes protecting the homeland, as Zero Dark 30 repeats incessantly. They are assassins and coup plotters who have overthrown elected governments around the world, from Iran to Guatemala to Chile to too many countries to name here. And the CIA is rightfully hated around the world because of that history and the black sites where torture continues even today under the Obama administration. In the face of this history and the reality of ongoing occupation, drone strikes, and war, to portray Osama bin Laden as, quote, the most dangerous man in the world is ludicrous and delusional. Zero Dark 30 wants us to cheer these criminal acts and ignore the millions, yes, millions of people who have died at the hands of the CIA and the U.S. military. Not for us or our safety, but for the empire that this killing enforces. We say, not in our name. Prosecute the war criminals, release the detainees, and end the wars and occupations now. Since 9/11, hundreds of American Muslims have been rounded up in a U.S. government program of preemptive prosecution. People of conscience in New York State recognize the need for all of us to stand against preemptive prosecution and for due process, and founded Project Salam, support and legal advocacy for Muslims. Joe Scary is one of the founders of the local offshoot, Project Salam, Salam, Illinois.
Thank you. It's very important that people in Chicago are protesting Guantanamo and calling for it to be shut down. But it can't stop there. Illinois itself is home to what many refer to as Little Gitmo, the Communications Management Unit, or CMU, at Marion. As part of the U.S. government program of preemptive prosecution that you just heard described, federal penitentiaries at Marion, as well as Terre Haute, Indiana, have set up units to house Muslim inmates. These Communications Management Units, CMUs, are a modified form of solitary confinement. They're characterized by no physical contact with family or friends, extremely limited opportunity for non-contact visitation and other communication, denial of programming, and complete segregation from the rest of the prison population. The dozens of men held in the CMUs in our area are just a few of hundreds held in an archipelago of prisons that have come to define this country. Salem, Illinois was set up to join a broad spectrum of the Chicago and Illinois community together to say we stand with our Muslim brothers and sisters and for due process and human rights, and against profiling, against stereotyping, against preemptive prosecution and other illegitimate prosecutions, harsh confinement, and FBI and police spying. At Salem, Illinois, we say, and we invite you to say with us, prosecute the public officials who have ravaged the Constitution. Free the prisoners. Thank you.
Our next speaker, Brent Holman Gomez, is a member of Gay Liberation Network that has expanded its anti-war activism to support Army Private Bradley Manning via postcard campaigns, a prison trip, TV shows, and Pride Parade blasting.
Here's Bradley.
Hey,
Join us today.
So basically why we know a lot of what we do about the prisoners that are at Guantanamo is allegedly thanks to this Army Private Bradley Manning, who released information to WikiLeaks, which then was printed by various news sources, including the New York Times around the world. So his contribution is the way that we know that the government has contradictory evidence against some of these people that they would like to make charges against, as well as we know some of the status of their cases. And Bradley's act of sharing that information we view as a humanitarian act to inform the people, so that this really can be a government of and by the people. Bradley Manning is right now in basically very similar circumstances as many of those at Guantanamo. He's held in prison for a long time. There were no charges against him. Obama has declared him to have broken the law, even though there has not been a court trial to do that. So he's been ruled, just as the people at Guantanamo, as not being an innocent person until proven guilty. Under that frame of thought, we're all suspects. Anyone who thinks that we're innocent is a suspect, even a soldier for the Army. And so the root of this problem is the U.S. government's intolerance of open society. The rule of law means that the federal government needs to follow the Constitution and treaties and not capricious laws that are passed by the executive branch and the legislative branch. And all of these branches of our federal government are corrupt at this point and are fighting the power of the people to know what's going on and be part of and participate in their government, and are attacking democracy at all levels of our federal government. Judges have upheld it. The president tries to pass new laws. The legislature upholds it. We need to remove the tyrants. We need to free Bradley Manning. We need to free the innocents of Guantanamo. Now, what do we want? When do we want it? Now. What do we want? When do we
Thank you, Brent. Our next speaker, Stephen Eisman of TAMS Year 10, is a professor of art history at Northwestern and author of The Abu Ghraib Effect, and recently the essay Waterboarding, a torture both intimate and sacred, in the book Speaking About Torture. Here's Stephen.
Thank you very much. As I stand here beneath the Calder monument, I'm reminded of the expression that the arc of history is long and it bends toward justice. And I think that's true. If we think back 250 years ago, there was a book by an Italian jurist named Cesare Beccaria that spoke about the degradation of torture and its uselessness in interrogation. Subsequent to that, there was generations of constitutions passed that banned cruel and unusual punishment. The United States, of course, prominently among them. In subsequent histories, in the decades after that, in the early 20th century, instances of waterboarding by the United States, when it was discovered by President Roosevelt, Theodore Roosevelt, he immediately stopped, had the people who were doing the waterboarding arrested and tried for a crime. After the Second World War, waterboarding was done by Japanese. During the Second World War, waterboarding was done by the Japanese, and they were tried as war crimes, and they were convicted and sent to prison. So we have known about these. Despite all this, there has in recent years obviously been significant backsliding. The use of waterboarding and other forms of torture and long-term solitary confinement has to be stopped as a violation of law, the Constitution, and international law. In Illinois, we have some reasons for optimism that we can turn this around if we continue to act together. There was a prison in Illinois called TAMS Supermax Prison that, as a result of my organization and other groups' determined efforts over a period of 5 years and longer, managed to close this prison. There no longer is a statewide, there is a federal, but there's no longer a state institution in Illinois that sanctions long-term solitary confinement. If we stay together, if we keep struggling, if we keep speaking out, we can stop it in the United States and around the world. So together, let's get those men tried and freed. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Stephen. Next, Edcinia Clay works with the NATO 5 Defense Committee to both support and defend 5 activists who were infiltrated during the NATO summit protests by undercover Chicago police posing as activists and targeted by state suppression efforts with trumped-up terrorism charges under Illinois statutes. The NATO 5 Defense Committee works to provide jail and court support, as most of them are held at Cook County Jail on astronomical bonds awaiting trial. Their work also includes media, fundraising, book and letter drives to the inmates, and public education.
I am with the NATO 5 Defense Committee, and we work to support 5 activists who were infiltrated by undercover Chicago police posing themselves as activists during the NATO summit. These 5 activists are facing trumped-up terrorism charges under Illinois statutes, statutes that are coming under question for their constitutionality. One of the 5 under the state coercion that is called Cook County Jail, a jail with horrid conditions, accepted a plea and is now at state prison in Lawrence. The other 4 are being held at Cook County Jail with outrageous bonds, awaiting their trial. Anita Alvarez and Mara Emanuel have proven to be public officials that uphold a long history of criminalizing activists here in Chicago, and we hold them fully accountable. Terrorist is a label that has long been used to racially profile and target the Muslim community, and this has been horrid. It is a label now being used to target those that dare to voice dissent in this country. And with the passage of NDAA, state power will be extended to label and detain anyone without due process. All this to cover up the state terror this government has inflicted on millions of lives through its imperialist aims. Torture is not a condition confined to Guantanamo, as the Burge torture victims expose right here in Chicago, who are still waiting to be exonerated. and to see justice. Guantanamo was used prior to 9/11 to detain Haitian refugees in horrid conditions, and the detainment of immigrants without due process continues out of sight to most. The war on drugs is used as a front to incarcerate and criminalize poor people and people of color, and has created the most jailing nation in the world. We must resist on all these fronts to not just close Guantanamo for good, but to abolish the political and legal frameworks that have made such a place possible. Yes, we must protest, but we cannot stop there. We must stop paying into the system en masse and educate others that pay taxes used to kill, torture, imprison, and detain, and build our resistance for a mass exodus from funding this state domination and oppression that is happening nationally and internationally. Free the Guantanamo prisoners, free the NATO 5, free immigrant detainees, free them all.
Mario Venegas of Illinois Coalition Against Torture is a scientist by training, a human rights activist, but mainly a survivor of torture from Pinochet's dictatorship in Chile during the 70s. Here is Mario Venegas.
Thank you, Jill. I am here representing ICAT, Illinois Coalition Against Torture. And we are fighting to end torture at all levels and at the same time to close Guantanamo Bay. The Illinois Coalition Against Torture is an association of individuals and community-based organizations whose goal is to end U.S. torture by state actors at all levels of government, at home and abroad. We also want to eliminate the culture of impunity regarding torture through influencing public, advocating for changes, even political changes. But I am here also not representing just ICAT. I'm here as a survivor of torture, as a survivor of 2.5 years detained in Chile in concentration camps, the same, similar as Guantanamo in here. The techniques of torture that I received and I was inflicted are the same that people in Guantanamo and the people here in Chicago suffered. They were learned in Vietnam, and they have been learned all over these years at the Illinois School, at the School of the Americas. And I am part also of Illinois School of Americas Watch. And we have been trying to close this school for many, many years. That's the source of people being trained to torture around the world. And let me tell you, Guantanamo has to be closed down now. Have to be released all prisoners there. Because I know, personally, how do you suffer in a place like that when you are innocent, when you are being tortured, when you're being accused of something you have never committed, not a crime committed. And those people has to be released now, and it has to be closed down. Guantanamo and all other centers of detentions around in the world where the U.S. government is responsible for. We will continue our struggle because we have to close down School of the Americas. We have to close down Guantanamo and all other centers where we have people being detained as innocent people, where people are being tortured as innocent people. And torture is not a problem whether it's productive or not, as the discussion began with this new film about Bin Laden. No, torture is immoral, torture is illegal. And that's the thing that we have to concentrate. We have to stop torture, we have to close all the centers where people are being tortured. So I call you to continue the struggle. We are few people here today, but all over the world, in every major city, is concentration of like this, demanding to President Obama to close concentration camps like Giovanni Guantanamo. Obama has been responsible for all these years after he executed this decision of closing Guantanamo, but still is open. Please, we have to put more pressure on President Obama. Close Guantanamo once and forever. Thank you so much, Lee.
What do we want? Close Guantanamo! When do we want it? Now! Thank you everyone who came out today to speak and to be with us here at Federal Plaza. I want, if somebody could just step forward with a couple of the signs, I want to show people something. This is one of the many, two of the many of the people being held at Guantanamo still. These are the people that were tortured and have been indefinitely detained by the U.S. government. These are human beings. I want everybody here to know that. I want the larger public out there to know that. These are human beings. They don't deserve this. They deserve justice, and they deserve our attention. They must be released, and they must be released now. So with that said, I'm going to invite Regina Enig of the White Rose Society to come up and read a powerful poem. Regina?
Today I share a poem from peace poet Luke Nephew, written in January 2011. And it's a poem about remembering humanity. We are not here to make angels out of prisoners. We don't know them, but we know that they are men. And so we defend those who disappear under hoods and into jumpsuits, bringing back into the light every CIA black site, because right now, there is a man under that hood. There is a brother breathing prayers of desperation, striking hunger so hard that his ribs are about to crack. There is a man under that hood in Afghanistan, Guantanamo in Iraq, that is being treated as less than human. His rights have been dismissed with the label terrorist. And just for saying this, they'll probably put my name on a list. But this is too dangerous for us to not resist. Mr. President, I want you to know that if it were you, hooded and chained, we would be standing right here demanding the same basic human rights for you. If it were you facing indefinite detention, Mr. Senator, we would march in these streets with your name on our backs. We would fast in solidarity with your hunger strike, Mrs. Congresswoman. Even while months of breathing through black cloth made you cough, we would speak for you. Mr. Newsman, Mrs. Citizen, we would be here for you, because no matter how hollowed out the night, we remember that human rights are universal. This is life, not a rehearsal. You cannot steal years of men's lives based on lies extracted from torture and bribes. We cannot decide who is human and who is not without becoming the greatest threat to ourselves. I have sat inside a cell, and it taught me how wrong it is to cage men and then say it's all right to keep them, because they fell like corpses into the category of enemy combatants. I will not act like nothing happened when it's happening now. I will not bow to this injustice. I will speak for the change that was promised. I'm not ashamed to be honest and tell you. We have all cried, Mr. President. Clouds of consciousness overflowing out of our eyes, Mr. President, for those brief seconds when we've had the courage to realize that there is a man under that hood. No matter how beaten and bruised, there is a man under that hood that is exactly as human as you. There is a man under that hood. Regardless of his religion, there is a man who doesn't understand why we don't see him, why it's so hard for us to imagine what it would be like to be him. There where they sit in our prisons, hidden from our justice system, locked away? Are we going to pretend that they are less than men and just walk away? Or will we raise our eyes above the walls, raise our voices up to call out our government, to say we see you, we are watching what you're doing. No matter how many times you call them terrorists, we still recognize them as human. And to the detainees, no matter how tortured or shattered or forgotten you feel, please know that there are people in these United States who see you and hear you and know that you are real. And to the people of my country, do not pretend we are seeking freedom or justice or any common good until we are ready to respect the human rights of every single man under that hood.
Thank you, Regina. In September of this last year, Obama released the names of 55 of the 86 prisoners who are cleared for release at Guantanamo. Right now, Joe Scary of Salem, Illinois, and Kathleen DeSotos of 8 Day Center for Justice will read the names of those 55.
There's also a song that we're going to sing interspersed with the reading of these 55 names. So I'd like to invite those who are helping lead the song to come up, and we'll teach it to you first, and then we'll commence the reading of the names. We're singing in solidarity with our brothers held in Guantanamo. The words are, "Courage, Muslim brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home." Courage, Muslim brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home. Again. Courage, Muslim brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home. And now Mary Ellen from 8th Day Center and Joe will commence reading the 55 names of those whose names we know that are still detained after having been cleared for release. Al-Qadir Abdallah Muhammad Al-Yafi. Idris Ahmad Abdul Qadir Idris. Present. Ibrahim Atman Ibrahim Idris. Present. Rida bin Saleh Al-Yazidi. Present. Asim Tabit Abdullah Al-Kalaki. Present. Faiz Ahmad Yaiha Suleiman. Present. Khalid Abd Al-Gabar Mohammed Atman. Present. Adel Al-Ahimi. Present. Sharif Al-Sanani. Present. Isham Sniti. Present. Falen Karebi. Present. Yunus Chikori. Present. Saad Al-Khatani. Present. Courage, Muslim brothers.
Shibati,
Presente.
Nabil Saeed Hajarab,
Presente.
Shaker Amir,
Presente.
Mohammed Abdullah Mohammed Baoda,
Presente.
Muhammad Ali Hussein Kunaina,
Presente.
Saeed Muhammad Saleh Hatib,
Presente.
Omar Hamzayevich Abdullayev,
Presente.
Fadel Hussein Saleh Hentif,
Presente.
Abdul Sabur,
Presente.
Khalid Ali,
Presente.
Courage, Muslim brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home.
Sabir Asman,
Presente.
Motai Saib,
Presente.
Ahmed bin Saleh Bel Bacha,
Presente.
Muin Adin Al-Sattar,
Presente.
Ahmed Adnan Ajam,
Presente.
Ali Al-Shaban,
Presente.
Abdul Hadi Omar Mohamed Faraj,
Presente.
Abdul bin Mohammed Orji,
Presente.
Suleiman Adwa bin Akil Al-Nade,
Presente.
Abdulaki Ahmad Al-Badahani,
Presente.
Fahmi Salem Al-Asani,
Presente.
Jalal bin Amir Awad,
Presente.
Mansour Mohammed Mutaya Ali,
Presente.
Courage, Muslim brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home.
Sabri Muhammad,
Presente.
Saleh Muhammad Saleh Al-Tabi,
Presente.
Hamoud Abdullah Hamoud,
Presente.
Saad Nasir Mukti Al-Azani,
Presente.
Ahmad Abdallah Hassan,
Presente.
Mohammed Abdullah Taha Matan,
Presente.
Abdel Gaib Ahmed Hakim,
Presente.
Mohammed Ahmed Salam Al-Khatib,
Presente.
Abdul Qadir Ahmed Hussein,
Presente.
Mohammed Al-Zarnuki,
Presente.
Jihad Diab,
Presente.
Ahmed Abdel Aziz,
Presente.
Courage, Muslim brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home.
Mohammed Abdul Rahman,
Presente.
Shawali Khan,
Presente.
Kiali Gul,
Presente.
Abdul Ghani,
Presente.
Hussein Salem Mohammed Al-Merfedi,
Presente.
Mohammed Sahir,
Presente.
Belkacem Ben Saya,
Presente.
That concludes the reading of the 55 names of the men cleared for release, but still being held at Guantanamo. 55 of 86, cleared for release, still detained. Please join me, let's continue singing, "Courage, Muslim brothers, you do not walk alone." Courage, Muslim brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home. Courage, Muslim brothers, you do not walk alone. We will walk with you and sing your spirits home.
It's complete propaganda to basically try to convince the American public that torture was in some way a necessary and successful tactic towards, identifying and, capturing, even killing, alleged terrorists. And, it puts forth a lot of propaganda that is inaccurate, and it's also glorifying torture, and which is in violation of international law.